but to introduce this sort of topic. And you were mentioned, Western cultures are very keen for people to move past pain. I'd even more specifically say it's Protestant culture, because in Catholic countries, cemeteries are in the middle of town, where everyone has to deal with death by walking past the cemetery every single day. In Protestant cultures, we put the cemeteries on the outskirts of town. And that means that we're shoving it to the fringes. And what happens in Sydney is, because the big cemeteries are on the fringes of what was originally the town. And of course, now they're in the center of town, but that's actually not something that anyone really wants to deal with. So then they start to get developed into lawn cemeteries and things that look nice, and we don't really have to talk about it. But that is a cultural issue, because within our culture, it feeds into what you experience, which is, oh, well, can't you just be okay now? I don't really want to have this present in my view.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I've never heard it put like that before. And I think it also probably speaks into the idea of, it's very, you never talk about, what is it, like religion and politics, right? Which is very also like, we don't talk about certain things. I think like, we don't talk about death, right? We're like and I think it's because people are scared of what they'll find, that maybe they feel a little lost, maybe they feel a little, whatever. So yeah, I think it's all very interesting how we take these things and then we put them away. And so then when someone does go through something like that, we're like, what do we do? We don't have the tools. So yeah, it's interesting.
But it's also for you to document it as an experience of your body, because of course what happened, you were growing a human, and it's your body, it's your physical experience as well, and the grief that's attached to someone you haven't given birth to, I think, would be different, actually.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, look, and when I wrote the song, I really never wrote an intention of even it out, right? And that's probably why I was so bold in my lyrics, because I really felt like, well, I'm just writing this song for me. I just feel crappy about this, and I wrote it. And it was only like when I was sending demos over to my label, and I said, "Oh, there's this one I put in there, and like listen to it last, because it's not for the album. It's just just one." Because my label manager Graham, was like just so kind, and we're very close, and so knew I'd gone through that. And so I said, it's at the end, and don't you don't have to listen to it now, just whenever, but it's just not for the album. And then like he listened through and he immediately rang me and he was like, what do you mean it's not for the album? And I was like, oh, Graham, I was like, I don't know how country music radio is going to feel about a song about a dead baby. I don't think it's probably the right vibe. And then, he had a story of his own that he wanted to share with me, and he got really upset. And so I think that was really the first time I'd shared someone aside from like, my husband. And then he was like, Raechel, I feel like this song is really powerful, and I feel like you need to put it out. And so yeah, it took a bit of back and fro and encouragement from him. And I'm really, I'm glad I did. I think my fear is always, especially in today's day and age, it's always someone, and I shouldn't care what people think, but I always think someone's going to look at it and think, she just wrote that controversial song to try and get ahead, or to try and like that idea, because people do it. People have these not songs necessarily, but like anything in social media, it's all this clickbait to try and get a reaction from people. And so my fear was always that they're going to think that I've taken something really like personal, and they're like bastardized it and turned it into this sales tool.
Except anyone who's heard the song would know that there's no form of bastardization that has gone on. That is
totally,
that is completely from the heart. And I think it's also, the way you've sung it is that you don't shy away from expressing the emotion in your voice. And that means you're not trying to protect the listener from it, but you're also not trying to protect yourself. And I think that speaks to that authentic connection that you're generating between you and the audience. So that makes sense. So it's like, we're in it together. That actually is the way you show it's not clickbait. It's like you are right. That song.
Yeah. Well, I think I appreciate that. Yeah. Look, it's hard to it was hard to put out, and it's hard to sing sometimes live, but I felt like I'm so glad that I called my album What a Time to Be Alive. And I think it's just, I'm really grateful that women have entrusted me with with their stories as I've played it live. It's just been a really, an honor. So,
Yeah, because it goes to the role of art, which is partly to give people permission to tell their stories. And that's obviously what you've done. I think it's also not unrelated to the song Untangled, which you released as a single, in that's about not wanting to become untangled, actually. And that tangle of life and children and art and all those sorts of things. I mean, art is an entanglement. It is not straightforward. It can pop up at all times of the day and night, and it's not always going to deliver the way you want. But I would imagine that you can't ever imagine being untangled from it.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that, yeah, I think there's something beautiful about the illustration of getting, so tangled up in something. And, I mean, obviously I wrote this song about, being married to my husband. But I think there's something beautiful about envisioning your life with someone as kind of this, entanglement. And I think that is, like, it doesn't matter who you are. That's why, when people break up or divorce or separate or whatever, that's why it is so painful, because you're trying to like rip these strands apart that have been tangled up for years and years and years. And so look, my husband's amazing, and and we get along great, have a very similar sense of humor, and some days we want to kill each other. So which I think is very much marriage, right? Like, it's just
That's major human.
Like, so annoying. Mostly him to me, if I'm honest. So I'm pretty annoying. So.
But yeah, I think it just means it's hard to live with other people, actually.
100%. Well, I think it's like,